Welcome to episode 37 of Cougs on Cougs. This is Jess. I'm Mary. We're 1-3. I was there to witness it in person, went over to FedEx Field, but we'll get into a little bit more of that later. As always, we're going to start with our quote of the week, and it comes from one of my favorites.
That would be Coach K at Duke. It says, you can't win every game, but you can learn from every game.
No moral victories, but there's still a lot to learn, right?
I know. I'd kind of like to learn from a win.
You can learn from those too, right?
I know. We'll get there.
Going into coaching from the couch. So I met up with one of our closest family friends that I grew up with back in the Maryland area. His name is David Premont. And we were going to film a coaching from the couch segment, a normal one that's like, usually 5 minutes or something. But the FedEx Field workers were not having that and were kicking us off the field as we were filming. So we will go ahead and show you that very brief segment, and then we're going to elaborate a little more on some things that went right and wrong. But thank you so much to David. Cougs on Cougs. We're going to be really fast because we're getting kicked off the FedEx Field. This is David Premont. He's at D Premont on Twitter and one of our oldest family friends. Welcome to the show. We're going to do one thing that went wrong, one thing that went right. Ready? You can go first.
They gave us hope. We have a reason to believe now. Taysom's back. We have an offense. We're ready to roll.
Okay, that's good. My thing that went right, rushing. Jamal is back. Well, their defense was a little rough, but we did okay. And my thing that went wrong is I'm going to go with the pick six.
Let's talk about the neutral site. What about neutrality was part of this game?
Can that go wrong?
I don't think we lost that. I don't think we lost that.
Points.
But
okay.
I wasn't expecting this neutral site.
This is a lot faster than we wanted it to be because we're getting kicked off of FedEx Field. But you get the ambiance.
Go Cougs.
Background. Go Cougs. Okay, so
yeah, they really want to do
cut right to the chase, right? Yeah, I know you could hear him like 3 times. So I think, so for the good things, David said that we had hope. I mean, I think he meant as a fan base because I think with the whole scoring less than 20 points all the time, not breaking 20 points, the fan base was starting to get a little antsy. But scoring 32, that did give people hope, and Taysom looked better. I mean, he looked, I would say, better than he has in the other 3 games. Best game yet. And then for bad, he said that it wasn't super neutral. So what he meant by that, it was branded as a neutral site, but the video boards, the end zones, everything kind of read more as a West Virginia game. So who knows how much that really factored in, but it would have been nice to have a little more love. I don't know. We were in the BYU section. You could feel us. And I think 70-30 is what we're going to go with for fan split.
You could hear the fans
could
on
you?
The broadcast.
Chanting BYU?
Oh, yeah.
We got excited. We were with him till the end there. For my good thing, I talked about rushing. Jamal had a great game. 167 yards is what Jamal had, which is the best game he's had yet. He had nearly as many carries as he had against Arizona, so the running game was looking like it was back on track. For what went wrong, the pick six. I know we actually both rewatched it, not together, but we both rewatched the game. And the pick six, it was a bad throw. I think Taysom had a great game, and I think Taysom did look the best that he looked, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm still going to put the pick six on him.
Yeah, he did say to Ty coming out the field that he just didn't see. He didn't see the guy come in.
And that happens to every quarterback, not
does.
just Taysom. But I would say, take that pick six away, and who wins?
Oh, there's a lot of things.
I know.
This or that, and they win.
It's true.
I do want to add on though with Jamal that Taysom also had 101 rushing yards.
He sure did. That's his first time breaking 100. I mean, he didn't break it by much, but
definitely better than last week.
Rushing
for both of them.
Like
we had 23 rushing yards last week, and we had a lot more this week.
So and then Jess had some more she wanted to add because she obviously didn't get to be in that super fun 1-minute video.
No, we're at the game, so. Yeah, I watched it here. Watching it initially, it's harder when you're watching it in real time because you're just so worried about what's happening next and everything. So going back and watching it again, you see a lot more and you're not as stressed.
Right,
you can notice things. So after watching it again, I actually felt way better about it.
Me too. I really did.
Yeah. So if you're feeling bad about the game, go watch it again.
It was a good game, and we played really well.
We did.
For the most part.
So my good thing, there's actually a lot to pick from, but what I wanted to talk about
She has a legal pad of notes here. Such a lawyer.
I know. I know. So that last touchdown drive, I really liked. So this was near the end of the fourth quarter. So this was 9 plays for 79 yards in 2 minutes and 1 second.
It's a healthy drive.
And here are the big plays. So we had 10 yards to Hefo, 16 yards to Pearson, a 12-yard Jamal run, 18 yards to Kurtz, and then 18 yards to Moroni for the touchdown. I love that balance right there. Taysom had a couple of rushes too.
Some great variation in your offense.
Yeah, it was really good. You had 4 different receivers in there catching balls that were 10 yards or more, which was really nice. And we just marched that down really quick. So for me, that was really good to see all of those different receivers catching balls under pressure. It's late in the game. We're trying to get a touchdown. And I felt like Taysom felt comfortable throwing to all of them. So for the bad thing, I was thinking about this a lot. And what I kept coming back to is that it reminds me of basketball, actually, because I feel like this team is having a series of really terrible luck going back to, even the bowl game against Utah. And in basketball, Ken Pomeroy does his stats, and one of the stats he has is the luck factor. And so I looked into that and found someone that does football rankings for luck. And so basically the idea from Pomeroy, he says that luck is a measure of the deviation between a team's actual winning percentage and what one would expect from its game-by-game efficiencies. So he says, essentially, a team involved in a lot of close games should not win or lose all of them, and those that do will be viewed as lucky or unlucky. Do you want to guess what our rating is?
Like worst in the country?
Close. We're 121 out of 128. Notre Dame's last. They're okay. 128.
Yeah. Ooh, poor Notre
But yeah,
Dame.
we're at the very bottom there. Okay, and
that shouldn't surprise anyone, because what's the other stat? We've lost 3 games by a differential of 7 points.
Yeah, 7 points total in all 3 losses.
I mean, at some point, it just does come down to that sheer bad luck.
So if you think about all of the tipped passes we've had that don't, get tipped to the turf or anything, they're tipped right in other receivers' hands. Even things like Jamal Williams getting his first fumble of his career.
And to be honest, even all the 2-point conversions we're going for sometimes come down to just that luck factor.
Yep, all of that. And then even, late in the game, West Virginia gives us some gifts, that they had a dropped pass on a 3rd down that caused them to punt. And then they had a fumble right at the end of the game when they should have sealed it off on the 3-yard line.
Yikes.
Yeah, so they're giving us a chance, and yet we're still not coming out with the win in all of these close games.
Yeah.
So that's got to turn around soon.
That's a very interesting bad thing. I'm intrigued.
Yes.
As we've mentioned, we're 1-3, so we have brought on our very official stats man, Ken O'Kelly.
Yes, official.
It's on my Twitter bio.
It should be if it's not. We've had him on in the past for basketball, but this is the first time he's doing some football stats for us. So he's at OKellyKM on Twitter, and he actually does tweet out a lot of these stats that we're going to talk about and a lot of other great super hot takes. So give him a follow. We'll put up the handle for him, fire emoji. What are we going to talk about with him?
So we have 4 different categories we're going to talk about. Missed tackles, incompletion breakdowns, so incomplete passes, drops by receivers, and then interceptions.
The interception breakdown, and one was removed today.
One was removed today, which I'm grateful I didn't do any percentages, because then I would have had to go back and redo them. But
important to know.
Good.
Okay, so let's start with missed tackles. And we had kind of talked about before that we think that this is something that's kind of getting overlooked, because with a struggling offense and a defense that's doing enough to keep you into the games, it's really easy to overlook your defense and to just kind of write off. But they're not perfect. They're very good, but they're not perfect. So what have we got?
Right. So through the first 3 games this year, our tackling efficiency, like the rate of tackles for tackle attempts, has increased greatly. Like against UCLA, we made almost 3/4 of our tackles, which
I'll take it.
I have a wider definition of missed tackles than the NFL does, apparently.
Which is fair.
Yeah, because there's no actual official definition anywhere online for what a missed tackle is. But we went up to 72.5% of tackles against UCLA, and then against West Virginia, we went down to 63.3%.
Which we decided we can credit some of that to the talent, because West Virginia's receivers and running backs are super fast, but obviously it's still, you don't want to be regressing with that.
Right, and it was really interesting to break it down by half. The first half against West Virginia, we had 24 missed tackles, which was more than we had in the entire game against UCLA. and the same number that we had against Arizona and Utah. The second half, that went down to 13 missed tackles.
That's a lot better.
So we cut it in half. And we were still at 63.3%, which is about the same percentage as Arizona. So we really improved the second half. We figured it out. But that first half was pretty hard on our defense.
What's a good percentage? Like, where should they be?
So with the NFL numbers, since they don't really track missed tackles for college, the average NFL defense was in the low 90s, 90%.
So you have to account for the talent gap. So I would say between 75 and 80 is like fantastic.
Probably. With my wider definition, that's probably about where it would be. 63 is
probably not great.
Right, but the 72 against UCLA, like our defense was lights out. And
that's good. And we held them to 17 points, which is what we want to do.
Let's talk about incompletions. So obviously there's been a lot of talk with your Taysom and Tanner teams and all that fun stuff. All three of us are fine with Taysom starting. Let's just say that right now. But there have been quite a few incompletions, which we're not all of that is Taysom's fault. There are two people involved in those passing plays. But what do we have for incompletions?
So for incompletions, 13 of the total incompletions have been drops. So that sounds like a lot. But on the other side, 17 of them have been because Taysom threw a bad ball. So it's about equal.
Bad meaning like overthrown,
underthrown, thrown out of bounds, where no one can make a play on it, but not quite a throwaway, kind of thing.
That's a fair definition.
7 of them have been because of reading the route incorrectly. Because we've been running a lot of option routes through the first couple games, and that takes a lot of work and timing.
Style offense.
And some of them, like one of the interceptions, was Nick Kurtz and Taysom being on the wrong page for an option route. Kurtz made a break that Taysom had already thrown the ball, and it went right to the DB while Kurtz kept running after his break, going the other way. And that's just something that goes away with practice and reps.
So that kind of goes right into the next stat, which is drops. And so along with incompletions, have incompletions been going down? Because you did say drops have been going down, which is good, and I think is kind of a result of more of the gelling and getting to know the offense a little better. But has incompletion...
Yes, like against West Virginia, I feel like everyone is kind of on the same page that our offense started clicking. It might not have been perfect, but it definitely did a lot better than UCLA or Utah. And that's just incompletions going down, drops going down across the board. The offense is starting to click.
So what about drops? What do we got?
So our team leader in drops is Moroni.
This is not a thing you want to be a leader in.
So out of the 13 drops, Moroni has 4 of them.
That is a lot.
Which is a lot. That's a third. He has a third of our drops. Second kind of surprised me because he's usually... Second and third are typically seen as our reliable receivers, Pearson and Mitch Juergens.
Yeah. I mean, I saw, ESPN 960 was asking which receiver do you trust most, and a lot of people were saying Colby, but here he is second on the list. I mean, he only has 3.
3 drops, and one of those is a tipped interception.
That gets into, the other interesting stat, which is the interception breakdown. But before we get to that, who else is on this drop list?
So Nick Kurtz only has 1 drop.
Which is less than I had thought. I mean, 1 is... Okay, we'll give him that.
Marshall has 2. Jamal and Squally both have 1, though Jamal's was intentional, I think. Okay. He was in the backfield and about to get lit up, and he kind of tipped it into the ground. So interceptions, one of them, like we said, got taken away. It was the one that Taysom was hit while he threw against Utah, and the ball still managed to go like 10 yards downfield, which was pretty impressive.
Taysom for you.
But luckily, his arm was still moving back when he got hit.
Oh.
So it popped the ball forward. The helmet popped the ball forward.
Great. I'll take it.
So his passer rating went up a little bit.
Oh, that's good. So 6 interceptions.
6 interceptions. One of them was the terrible throw against West Virginia. That went out to the pick six. The one that just floated out to the flat.
I'm not going to justify that.
Yeah,
you
no
can't
excuses.
Really.
He wouldn't.
And he even owned it.
Yeah,
so.
he wouldn't.
One of them was an option route miscommunication with Nick Kurtz against UCLA.
Yeah.
Nick broke one way. Taysom had already thrown it to where the DB was. And then the remaining 4 were all tipped by receivers.
That hurts.
That hurts.
What does tipped mean? It means
hit him in the hands. And Ken was saying that he was a quarterback in high school, and that if a pass is hitting your receiver in the hands,
I want him to catch it. I blame them. Hifo has 2 of them. One against Utah. That was the pick 6 against Utah.
First play of the game.
And the one at the end of the game.
The one at the end of the game. So he has bookended the past 2 games with tipped interceptions.
And you have to wonder why that is. Didn't you say Juergens had at least one of them too?
Juergens had one of them. It was the one that he was going up the seam against West Virginia.
Is that height? Because Oliva and Mitch are your 5'10" guys. Is it because Taysom's putting too much heat on the ball? Who's really to say? But that really is an interesting thing to think about when you're thinking about the interceptions, because it's not just Taysom not looking, which he did admit it was on the pick 6. There are so many other things that play into it.
Watching at least the West Virginia game again, and I wish I'd had time to go back and watch the other ones, but with these tipped interceptions and with these passes from Taysom to the receivers, I am wondering if chemistry between Taysom and the receivers is an issue, because, you know, with Taysom not playing in spring ball and then coming in and sort of easing back into it in fall, he hasn't had a ton of time with the guys. And so I didn't play football. So I can't, you know, I'm not like Ken. I didn't play quarterback, you know, obviously we don't have that experience. But for me, I did play volleyball. So it's sort of a similar setup, because you have a setter in volleyball and you have hitters. And when you're setting the ball, you know, you have to place it sort of right. And you get to know where your hitters like the ball placed and everything.
Sure.
So I think it's similar with quarterbacks, working with your receivers. You have to learn where are they best going to be able to catch the ball. And that only comes with repetition and with, you know, getting them those passes in practice so you can do it in the game. So I took a few clips of a few of Taysom's passes. So one was to Nick Kurtz, one to Mitch Juergens, one that was tipped, and then one to Hifo that was tipped. And you can see it looks like he is... For Nick, I mean, he can place it high and Nick goes up and gets it.
Okay.
And he knows he will. With Mitch, maybe it's a little too high for him and he's shorter. You got to hit him closer to the numbers. Mm-hmm. And same with Hifo. Same thing. He's also 5'10". He's a short guy. So you got to place it a little bit different. Yeah. And so think about this too. I mean, I'm wondering, this is totally just my opinion. So with Taysom, you know, he's 26. He's older. He's married.
Yeah.
How much time is he spending around the guys? Yeah, extra time just throwing, you know, like Tanner, who, you know,
stays after practice.
He doesn't have a wife to get home to. He may not be as far into school and all that kind of stuff. So I just wonder if that plays into it at all.
Something else to remember with stats is that they never tell the whole story.
That is true.
This is very important, and I want you to say this because I know we know a couple people who just think that the stats tell the whole story, and they absolutely don't.
So, like, we are 0-2 when we have a pass play go for more than 20 yards. We should just stop throwing downfield if it was just by the numbers. Like,
good point.
Receivers should slide, take knees, run out of bounds as soon as they hit that 19-yard mark.
Do not go over 20. Sure.
Mitch Juergens has a 100% completion rate.
He should be starting at quarterback.
Has like a 175 passer rating.
Team Taysom, Team Tanner, Team Mitchell Juergens.
Our offense has scored as many points through 4 games as Kansas has scored through 3 games.
Really?
Yeah, so Big 12, if you're listening, we fit right in.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't.
And we've scored 67 fewer points than Lamar Jackson by himself.
Okay.
Which, granted, he would be the 33rd ranked team offense by himself, but stats never tell the whole story.
No.
So
yeah,
they're just something to keep in mind
as you're
analyzing.
That's how you know he's a good stats guy, when he's willing to admit that.
That's right. That's why we have Ken on.
Yeah, so they have their place.
But # hire Ken.
Ooh, yes.
Ooh, yeah.
Hashtag Hyperic.
Talk of the town this week. We are starting with another wedding.
Yes.
So this would be TJ Haas and his now wife, Lo Eastman Haas. And so here's a picture of them. Adorable.
It is very cute. He is the third of the Lone Peak 3 to be married off. So
yeah, so I guess now we can take bets. I mean, they got that done quick.
We don't even take bets. We always say we know who's next. It's going to be Elijah.
But hey, we got Zach Frampton, so if he's going to follow those guys.
He just got home. But so did TJ. Okay. Anyway, sticking with some of our basketball friends, Jimmer is just lighting it up in Asia. So I don't think he's actually played in China yet, but he did have a tournament in Singapore. Mm-hmm. And he just was incredible. So Whitney Fredette posted an Instagram post with some of his highlights. So the Sharks won the Merlion Cup championship. Jimmer had 33 points, 29 points, 34 points, and 43 points in his last game. So, and he won the final by hitting 3 free throws with no time left. So that sounds like Jimmer. That sounds like the Jimmer we know and love.
He said he had never won a game like that.
On free throws?
No time left, yeah.
Well, but you all know he wasn't going to miss them. He has so many with those free throws. So it's good to see him thrive.
I know, it is.
He'll be in Houston this week.
Yeah, they're playing an exhibition game
against the Rockets. So I hope that Jimmer just lights it up again and shows them that he could play with them. But whatever, he's in China now. You had your chance and you lost it.
Make that money. Kyle Collinsworth is playing for the Mavericks. So
he's still on the roster as it stands. Yep. That could obviously change at any moment.
It won't.
It won't.
So they had media day this last week. So he posted a picture in his Dallas Mavericks uniform.
What's his caption?
First day of my pro career / modeling career. He's picking up where Tanner left off.
Hashtag Blue Seal. Whatever. No one can rival Tanner. Speaking of that, Tanner, anytime you want to post more modeling pics, we're ready. So, Jamal, we promised Nicole we would look this up, and we didn't get to it before we posted her interview. Jamal Williams is now, after the West Virginia game, 511 yards away from breaking Harvey Unga's all-time rushing record. So he's close. We have a lot of games left if he gets 100 yards per game, which he might not, but that's manageable. He could definitely do that. So if you haven't seen that interview we did with Jamal's mom, it's fantastic. Nicole is just the biggest sweetheart, and we learned all sorts of stuff about Jamal. Did you know he's a huge video gamer? I didn't.
Did you know he was shy before he came to BYU?
Yeah. Whoa. I still don't believe that, but I guess it's true.
Birthdays this last week was Harvey Longy, and his wife tweeted out a picture of him. Happy 24th birthday. And
it was on the West Virginia game day.
It was on that game day. And he did have a huge sack on 4th and 1.
He did. He did for sure. 3 tackles, 2 solo tackles, and the 1 sack. So that's not a bad day's work. So happy birthday to him. I think this is what we wanted to end on for Talk of the Town. A fan to model your fandom after. We love Doug McBot. He was out here for the UCLA game and tailgated, but he said, I get sad and frustrated when my team loses, but I will never assume I feel worse than the players, nor that I know more than the coaches. So 2 things to keep in mind. We all know it's frustrating to be 1-3, but don't turn on your own team. That's not going to help anything. As for our next opponent, we're just going to give them a minute of time. It's Toledo, and they are in the Mack West. They're undefeated. So, yes, it will be some Friday night action. They're 3-0. They beat Arkansas State 31-10. They beat Maine 45-3, and they beat Fresno 52-17. So, yes, the teams they're playing aren't the best. I mean, Fresno is in the Mountain West Conference, I think.
Maine has football. I did not know.
Who knew? But they're putting up points.
Yeah, well, they should be over those teams, but they're a good team. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at their record last year and how they've started this year. I think Ed Lamb said today that he thought they should be ranked. So
they're undefeated, and a lot of people aren't.
And
so that's
the team
something.
Is not treating them like lightly.
It's good, and I don't think that we should either. I mean, it could end up being a blowout, but it could also end up they could give us a run for their money. I think this is going to be their first true test. Another couple things to note, they are playing us coming off of a bye week, which is the same as West Virginia. So they have 2 weeks to prepare for us. We have 4 days. So that's a very short week, and that could end up being a factor into it as well.
So they're tied for 19th in the nation in points scored. So that's 42.7 a game.
It's a lot of points. Points against them, it's 10. That's third in the nation.
So their defense is holding teams to
right.
10. Okay, and then their quarterback, Logan Woodside, has 939 yards and a nearly perfect quarterback rating, so that's impressive.
Yeah.
And then I added this, they're also number 1 in sacks allowed, so he has not been sacked yet. So I am hoping we
were the first to get a sack of Skylar Howard, and so hopefully we'll be that will be our MO to just be the first team to sack people. I like it. Yeah. But that's Toledo, so don't overlook them. It could end up being a close game. Let's hope it's not. But yeah, there you go. As for what's coming up next, we do have something very important that we're very excited coming up on Thursday.
That would be BYU Basketball Media Days, which I am so excited for. So excited. We love basketball, and so it's this time of year is fun when you get into November, December, where you have both. Yeah, it's great.
And we have so many fun faces and people on our team that we're going to get to know a little bit better on Media Day, and they had their photo day today, so we'll show a few things from their shoots. We did get a look at the new uniforms. Yeah, we'll leave that alone.
Yeah, that's another thing. But yeah, 2-hour BYU Sports Nation, all about BYU basketball.
Yeah, so tune into that. As for football, the game is on Friday because of conference this weekend. So that's at 8:15 Mountain Time on Friday on ESPN2. If you're going to be at LaBelle Edwards Stadium, wear white. This is going to be a whiteout.
Sponsors this week are number 1, Mitt Romney. So not for being part of the presidential debate this week, unfortunately, but for lighting the Y at the game this weekend. So look for him down on the field Friday night.
And our second sponsor is our dear friend, the former Texas coach, Mack Brown. We will see you on Friday as he will be in Provo calling our game and reminiscing on some good times with Taysom. May you always stay loyal to the white and blue. For Jess, I'm Mary. We'll see you next week.